Firefighter's chaplain, who was killed Tuesday while giving last rites to a fireman.
He would hold your hand and you would just feel good. He emanated some form of just positive goodwill that nobody else I've ever met could. By just touching you, by putting his hand on you and giving you a hug, you just floated away happy.
Many of those in the overflow crowd had narrow escapes that day. David Hanshu had two.
You hear the sound and then the building starts falling down in slow motion. And I'm a photographer. The initial reaction was to raise the camera and take a picture, but something up here said, just run. And in the 20 plus years I've been doing this, I've never once run from anything. But it probably saved my life. The wall of debris that came flying down just picked me up and threw me a block.
One leg shattered, the other torn up. Firemen pulled him to a delicatessen. Another photographer captured that moment, but it wasn't over.
When the second building collapsed, the facade of that building was blown in. We were trapped once again. Using their hands and tools and sheer strength and will, they pushed their way out.
For news photographers, cameramen, reporters, days like that are part of an unwritten contract with life. So too with soldiers, policemen, firemen, which doesn't make it much easier. But the thousands still missing downtown, they didn't sign up for this.
I'm so sorry that so many people lost their lives over this. It's not comprehensible. It's not right.
At the end, the photographer pulled out his camera. It may not make much of a picture, but this one's personal. Richard Blystone, CNN, New York.
Richard, thank you. And so many hundreds and possibly even thousands of firefighters from across the country descended on Manhattan to help in the rescue operation. Aileen Pepe is one of them. She's a volunteer firefighter from Keene, New York, upstate New York near Lake Placid. And when we talk about the missing firefighters, what does it say to you, Aileen, about the job you do and about the job you've come to do here in Manhattan?
How dangerous it really can be and is, and how quickly, it was a very sudden thing that happened to all of them at one time. It was one fireman here, one fireman there. It was 300 instantly. I think that's the first time I've ever heard of something like that happening.
You were at the Pentagon before coming up to New York yesterday.
Yes,
what can you do here and the others who are doing similar jobs?
Whatever we're needed to do. The Pentagon, I answered phones and just helped coordinate volunteers, and here I just moved some debris and supplies and things like that. I wanted to come and rescue people. I'm trained as an EMT, and I was prepared to save lives, and it's pretty depressing to realize that there is nobody there for me to tend to.
How do you feel being here, knowing what you just said? It is really a dramatic statement.
It is. It's, I grew up here. I grew up in Washington Heights, and
wow.
You come through and you see all the firemen walking, exhausted, and the National Guard, and all the police, and you see that plume of smoke, and it just doesn't seem real, but I don't know what bin Laden, they may have known the landscape of New York, but they don't know New York. I mean, I just kind of feel like everybody's looking, hey, bin Laden, you talking to me? This is New York. You don't know what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with here. This is not, I mean, it's a horrid loss of life, but this is not going to look New York. I mean, no way, no way.
You going back in today?
I believe so. I believe so. Take a little break, and yeah, I hope.
I know you were hesitant to come on today, but it is appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And, our best to you and everyone else who's involved in the operation.
Thank you.
Aileen Pepe, upstate New York, near Lake Placid.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Paula, clearly the emotion rings true again, day 6, and again as the stories continue to trickle out. There are so many thousands and thousands of stories that we hear, and just about everybody on the streets of Manhattan has a story that is just so compelling you cannot stop, cannot help but to stop and listen to them because, wow, they tell something that is so tragic and so heart-struck that it can overwhelm you at times. Back to you.
Well, I'll tell you this, Bill, I stand in awe of their strength.
Yeah.
We're going to quickly head back to Atlanta right now where Miles has an update with some new facts for us.
Quick recap for you, Paula. The latest at this moment. The massive search for culprits in this attack has netted a second arrest. Justice officials say a material witness is in custody in New York. He had been among the 25 detainees held by the Immigration and Naturalization Service, now being held by the FBI, facing a material witness warrant. Also, U.S. intelligence is saying it has photographic evidence that links Osama bin Laden to the assault. The images reportedly show a meeting between a hijacker from American Airlines Flight 77, the 757 that flew into the Pentagon, and a suspect in the attack on the USS Cole. You recall that attack was linked to Osama bin Laden's organization. So there you have a link between the USS Cole and this latest attack, the attack on the World Trade Centers in the Pentagon. CNN has learned that within the next 24 hours, Pakistan will ask Afghanistan to turn over Osama bin Laden. A significant development there. Pakistan closely allied with Osama bin Laden over the years. Pakistan saying they will face massive military action otherwise. And investors here in the U.S. and around the world are bracing for a volatile first day of stock trading since Tuesday's attacks. The markets will reopen tomorrow morning, the longest closure since World War I. We can find in-depth coverage of these stories and more at CNN.com. And we also invite you to send us email, questions, comments, anything on your mind this morning. Send it to us to attack@CNN.com, and we'll get to those questions and comments a little bit later. Paula.
Okay, thank you, Miles. On this Sunday, a Sunday that is a day of worship for many Americans across the country, there is a lot of reflection about what happened to our country starting at 8:45 last Tuesday morning. Right now I'm going to check in with Reverend Peter Duganzik, who is the associate pastor of St. Mary's Church. He serves for the Reverend for a parish that is in Manhasset, New York. That is a suburb just about a half hour away from New York City. Good morning. Thank you very much for being with us.
Good morning, Paula. I'd just like to take a moment, too, to thank the people of America because this community, as you know, has been hit. Many of our members were either working that day, many of our members were in the city, have friends, or were lost. And we believe that the prayers of our great country have been prayers that have helped us through this week.
You just mentioned that some survived from your parish, some are lost. How many people are missing in your parish?
From our parish directly, I believe about 10, but the community itself could be as high as 30 to 35.
And how many people survived of those workers you talked about that worked in the city and that were there that day of the multiple attacks?
I don't even know if I could put a number on it. There are so many that worked in that area, so many that worked in the district, that it would be hard to put a number on those. I've talked to so many who were there that morning, who saw it happen from across the street. It's just been devastating to them.
Have you had any confirmation of deaths, not only at your parish, but in the surrounding community?
None direct. Nobody that we have known has been identified, and so we still hold hope for many of them. We still hold hope that these efforts will yield some miracle somewhere.
What is the message that you will deliver to your parishioners today?
I'm glad you asked that question. Today's gospel is the gospel of the prodigal son, the son who returns to his father, the son whom the father declares as once lost but now found. And the message is going to be a message of hope. The hope that, yes, we have those who are missing and we pray that they will return, but also that message, too, that God does love us. He welcomes us back. God will embrace us in these hours, just as he embraced this lost son. And so that it's God who will ultimately give us, I believe, consolation in all of this.
I think you would have to acknowledge, even though many Americans have great faith, no matter what religion they follow, their faith has certainly been sorely tested this week. Reverend Billy Graham, in a poignant sermon during the National Day of Prayer at the National Cathedral earlier this week, basically told folks who believe that it is okay to be mad at your God. Are you mad at your God?
I don't know if I would use the word mad. I don't know if I would use the word angry, but I am certainly frustrated. I am certainly, and I would say to anyone who comes to me, anybody who would be willing to come in and talk, that same thing. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to project those emotions to God. It's okay to say to God, this hurts, I'm angry, I'm mad. And I have done that, and I do that in my prayer.
I know that St. Mary's has an elementary and a high school that is a part of your community. Reverend Billy Graham also said that it is okay to question why a God would allow such an evil thing to happen. What do you say to children that you come into contact, or what should parents say to their children when their child asks, how could a loving God do this?
And in fact, I have been asked that question by many of the children in several opportunities that I've had to talk with them. And I believe the answer is very simple. It's God is crying with us. God is frustrated with us. The free will that he's given humanity is also a free will that can be abused. And in this case, it is contrary to God's will. An act like this is not in God's plan, but he will help us to rise from this devastation, to love one another once again, and to overcome the pain that we feel through the promises that he gives, the promises of eternal life, the promises of seeing our loved ones again.
What can your parish expect later this week?
We can expect more names to be identified, more of those who are missing. We will be saying prayers throughout the week. We have added additional services for opportunities to pray. We have also added a few services for families who are grieving at the time, families whose loved ones are still missing. And hopefully through all of that, they will be able to see a community of love and a nation that will support them and support our government and our people in this effort as we rise from these ashes.
Reverend Peter Duganczyk, I know this is an extremely painful time for you and your community, and we appreciate your taking out the time to share some of your thoughts with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
We have talked a lot about what has happened in New York City. Not much has been said about the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, but right now, Frank Sesno takes a look at the what has happened in the wake of the plane that crashed into the Pentagon, and a reflection on those who perished.
Lost on American Flight 77 from Dulles, bound for Los Angeles. Paul Ambrose. Engaged only 1 week, he was planning to marry his girlfriend in Spain next fall. A doctor with a master's degree in public health, Paul was working with the Surgeon General to address racial disparities in health care. He was not behind the controls that day, but Wilson Bud Flagg was a pilot for American Airlines. He was traveling with his wife Darlene and their friend Barbara Edwards, who taught French and German at a Las Vegas high school. Stephen Jake Jacoby was COO of a paging company, MetroCall, on his way to a conference in California. His colleagues say the fact that his company's service continued during Tuesday's tragedy is a tribute to Jake's hard work. Chandler Keller was an engineer at Boeing and what his wife of 1 year calls a real Renaissance man. She says Chandler cooked, surfed, skied, camped, and could do just about anything. Michelle Heidenberger was another American Airlines employee. For 25 years, she served as a flight attendant. She's survived by her husband, a pilot for U.S. Air, and their 2 children. Michelle's family says she died trying to protect her passengers and her crew. American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon around 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time on September 11th, 2001.
Right now, we are going to change our focus, moving from that wealth of